Good afternoon and good morning, sorry. I'm really honored and privileged to be here today. I'm really happy to see how the two countries really collaborate very strongly. There's a really strong interest, even from the highest level of the two states, that we have to collaborate further. I was also informed yesterday that the collaboration will go beyond these 5 areas, including potentially the building of the capital city of Indonesia with the help of UAE. So thank you very much for the great support. So today I have a very short presentation on the agriculture sector, what the two countries can potentially do together. So the basic principles that we are trying to offer revolves around the 3 P's: people, planet, and purpose. And the purpose in this case is about food security, as well as rural livelihood, and also about making sure that the carbon emission is being offset so that we will achieve the carbon neutrality. I think the timing of this meeting, right after COP26 at Glasgow, is really, really timely. So the idea is to create a special economic zone or a free trade zone, but not only for industry, but primarily for these 3 things: food security, climate action, as well as making sure that the MSCs, small enterprises, continue to be developed. So we did a little research on what the 2 countries potentially can export and import. So you can see from this table that these are the top commodities that UAE is importing. And on the left-hand side is what potentially can be planted in Indonesia that may be appropriate to be exported to UAE. The list may not be exhaustive, and we are open for other suggestions. In fact, 2 days ago, a delegation, including myself, went to visit in the middle of the desert, an hour and a half from here, to see Elite Agro with my friend over there. And it was quite impressive how in the middle of the desert you can actually develop a very high quality type of produce like blueberries and tomatoes. And in fact, we had a discussion with our president last evening, and he actually had a location in mind in Indonesia in what we call the Nusa Tenggara, which is, if you think about the Java Island, next to it is Bali. I'm sure you know where Bali is, and next to it is Nusa Tenggara. So there's a map, and I'll show you later. So here's the map actually. And you can actually see, this is the island of Java where 80% of the population lives. If you like coffee, Java coffee. This is Bali, and this is Nusa Tenggara. So this is, the climate here is actually similar to where we are here today, but much more conducive. Now, there are a lot of areas as well in Borneo and Sulawesi. But the areas are essentially more, the excess land are now peatland. I don't know if you know what peatland is. It's remainings of forest areas. So it's actually very prone to forest forest fire. But if we cultivate it in a good way, and we can actually plant, for example, pineapples in this type of land. And so we have a huge area where we can actually plant for food estate and also mitigate forest fire risk. So here is just a map of Indonesia and where most of the plantations are. So the 2 largest areas are for palm, which you do import as well, and rice. But the only problem is that the basmati rice that you like to eat here actually is not very conducive to be planted in these peatlands that I mentioned to you. So we may have to look for other areas like the vegetable, fruits in those Nusa Tenggara area. So this is just more information that we have. So we actually have 24 million hectares of land that are still available to be cultivated, and right now it's protected, but it can also be cultivated if the two countries decide that we want to use or change the usage from protection to land use. But most important thing is to make sure that the three components of people, planet, and purpose are always maintained. So we have a framework in Indonesia where we call the inclusive closed-loop flywheel. What does it mean? Essentially, what we want to do is to not only achieve food security, but we want to make sure that the rural communities, people living in the villages, actually benefit from this economic growth. And the concept is by providing them with various accesses, finance, technology, know-how, as well as market, right? So export market is very important, and that's why we're here. And if we can continue to turn this wheel, starting with the big corporations, and we then create our own value chain all the way to the smallholders. So we have this concept called nucleus and plasma, where the nucleus owns, let's say, 80%, the plasma, which is owned by smallholders, 20%, but essentially the 20% we develop for them. So we provide the financing and end-to-end solution. And if we do this, then we are essentially growing together instead of inequality of growth. So I think the version of common prosperity is an issue in every country. So one of our solutions to common prosperity in Indonesia is to try to incentivize big corporations to do this inclusive closed-loop system where we can grow not only food security and whatever purpose that we have, but also make sure that the SMEs and the micro enterprises grow with us together. So this concept of food estate, this is one example of where it's successful in Indonesia, but this example is actually for industrial estate. In Indonesia, we have a term called KADIN, and people already understand what it means, special economic zone. But what we're trying to change the mindset is not only for industrial, but also food, rural community, and also for climate action. So for investors, what we're offering is obviously, with the help of G2G, is easiness to invest. So all the licenses are done through one window. Doesn't take a long time. The government essentially have to provide the land, all the fiduciary titles, so that certainty of investment can be secured. And to make sure that also in return, obviously we do ask for this, for example, this nucleus plasma, where essentially maybe 20% or 30% of the land are actually designated for smallholders. So this is just more information on the climate action. So for example, in Indonesia, not only we have virgin forests, peatland that we have to make sure that it doesn't get forest fire during extreme drought or El Nino, which happens from time to time. And also there's called the blue carbon economy as well, like mangrove. I think mangrove was highlighted at COP26 as well. It has huge potential to capture and carbon sink. And I think in the President's interest as well, that mangrove is a big project that we can actually develop. I'm very happy also that our country, Indonesia, will be the host for the next G20 in Bali. And one of the things that we would like to showcase in Bali is those mangrove conservation projects. So I think with that, I thank you for your time and for your interest. We sit over here, and if you would like to invest in in any of this potential collaboration, please come to our table and we can talk. Thank you so much.